decided that the time for benefiting from sermons was pretty well past. It served greatly when the minister was often the only person with any education or knowledge of what was going on in the world, and when he preached to the people, that was informative and helpful to them. Well, as much as 30, 40 years ago, I began to think, whatever I choose to preach on, there's going to be at least one person, probably several of them, know more about the subject than I do. Well, it's no longer informative for someone to stand up there for 20 minutes. Communication is one way. It's not two ways. And you just sit there. I was lucky to try to keep it interesting enough, so I lasted 6 years at each one of my appointments till I got in trouble with the authorities of the church. Decided I wanted to go in a different direction, and then I married a woman who was a devout Unitarian, and she took care of the rest of it. I wasn't unwilling to be led. I was looking for something. And where Unitarian Universalists are coming from is more in harmony with my thinking. So I'm only going to tell you as much as I have to from 20 notes, which I probably can. But anyway, I don't need them. I just have my notes so I won't stray from the subject too much. Oh, I know. I'll put it in here. Yeah. Well, when I preach, I never tried to preach more than 20 minutes. People's attention span is good. It's about the limit for most of us, and especially just somebody stand up there talking to you. They just give and take to it all. Well, gee, I'm already half through. The reason that the Unitarians appeal to me is that a nickname for Unitarians is truth seekers. That leaves it open to interpretation. I mean, what's your truth, your truth, your truth? All of us are different. We see the same thing, but if you ask each person about the thing that we saw, what's your interpretation? We used to play the game of gossip when I was a young man. Do you ever play gossip? Yeah. Someone starts a piece of news and you pass it around, and you pass it around. And by the time it gets back here, you wouldn't recognize what was originally said at all, because we come at things. Have you ever heard that term? Where is he coming from? Where is she coming from? Anyway, they are coming from a situation you don't understand, but they understand it. And I think instead of that being where conversation ends, that should be with civilized human beings who have some sense of getting along with each other, of where you begin to talk. Was it Rodney King, the black guy who was beat up in Los Angeles, basically because he was black? And he said, can't we just get along? Now, that may not seem like a very high ideal, but it's a lot better than what we've achieved so far, both individually and between nations. We do the dumbest things, and we emphasize the negative things that separate us. We don't concentrate on the good and healthy things that we could build on and get along despite our differences. So, in the discussion, I hope that follows shortly here and goes on until we run out of time rather than anything to think And I hope that brings out where we really live. You know, try to do away with some of this superficial stuff. At 95, I don't have time for that anymore myself. It's just more important that I have my priorities. So I have to be realistic in my priorities. That's why I can agree with Rodney King. That may be the best we can come up with today. If we could just get along instead of fighting with each other all the time, often over to the point where you forget what you're fighting about. And with nations, it's even worse, of course. What are we doing in Afghanistan? Anybody have any ideas? Well, we've got some ideas floating around, but anyway, yeah. So I said, I'm going. You're going to disagree with me. I invite that. I think we ought to work on the positive and just get along. I think we can achieve that. What do I have for dreams? Maybe I should say what I have for human fears. It scares me that we have found the source of power in our world, the atomic power. And we're supposed to lead the world into a peaceful place. And who is the only one that's ever used the atomic bomb? And where did we use it? Not in some desert place to prove that we had an atomic bomb, but on two big, heavily populated cities that killed millions of innocent people, killed or mutated them. That's my big concern. I had a wonderful childhood. My mother asked me once, Donald, did you have a good childhood? I'm like, boy, did I have a good childhood. My dad had a hay and feed store, and I had to help him after school, so I was the only kid in high school that had a car then. And boy, I was king of the road, I tell you, with that car to use. And I had complete freedom, everything. I had so much that my grandchildren, and especially my great-grandchildren, aren't going to have. I didn't have much money. I went through the Depression as an adult. I know what the Depression was like. And I'm not going to tell you about it because you won't believe me how bad it was. You think this is bad now? Oh, this is peanuts compared to the Depression. But no, I don't expect you to come along with me now, but 70 years later, something like that, getting close to 100 years later, it's gone, it's another world. But we ought to learn from it at least, and not pity ourselves too much, but get busy and fix things up. You want to start it right now? I welcome it.
Thank you. We met outside, and you had talked about priorities and perspectives, and I was going to share something with you then, and I said I'd wait. First thing is that not only you are seekers, but the definition of Israelite means seeker. But the trouble with seeking is you can't find, or you can only find tentatively. And this taught me that. I learned it about 3 years ago, and it changed my life because it made me more human. And if you could join me in, make a little clockwise circle over your head with your index finger. Clockwise circle over your head. And look at it. Make sure it's going clockwise. Keep it pointed at the ceiling and bring it down below your chin. Keep it turning, keep it going clockwise. Bring it. Which way is it going? Clockwise. And I didn't know that. I thought I had the truth. I could see it clearly, and you were all a little bit slow. But now I see the world from a certain angle. And so George Bush sees it like this, and Obama sees it like this. I might agree with this angle, but there's no denying it. He's seeing it from his own legitimate angle. And this made me human. And if I have any priority, that's it, to become human and allow everyone to see the world they do without trying to convince them that my way is better.
It's just come to my attention really strongly in the past 5, 10 years how important it is that we realize how different people perceive things. Where are you coming from? That's why I chose this title today, what are your priorities? Because where you're coming from determines what you'll do. In other words, I've become much more interested in the cause than I am on the effect. Now the effect is very human. We blow each other up and make life on Earth impossible. That's not peanuts, that's for something important. But you still have to ask, what's the cause of this? Where do we go astray? So it just seems to me we spend more and more time on the cause without dismissing the effect that we have to deal with. That's the realism of it. I decided when I came here with my wife, oh, that's been 30 years ago, and she's more of a damned Howley than I am. She died 3 years ago, but we finally realized the best way to get along here is to accept the way you are, the way you look, and you're in a minority, my friends. Those of you who don't have darker skin and so forth, and don't talk quite the same as you, the rest of the people. There's nothing wrong with being a minority. If you come from the mainland, try it out for a while. You see what it's like. But then you adjust to it, and then our adjustment is so much less than theirs. Yeah. All right, keep it going. Yeah. Corey? Corey, you have to interpret for me.
Okay, you gotta speak loud.
No, that won't help.
Well,
Kate
y'all.
places with me, because she has a good loud voice. I have 2 hearing aids, and sometimes the U.S. was talking about something, and all made some asinine remark that has nothing to do with the subject. That's because I got 2 hearing aids, and they don't replace your regular hearing. So you be my comment.
Okay.
All right.
As well as I
You were talking about how we can get along, and I was thinking of an account I read of a woman who lived at the North Pole with a small group there during the winter. And of course, they had to all hang together because, you know, anything goes wrong there, you die basically. You're there in the, you know, the blizzards and the below 0 temperatures, I don't know how many degrees, and you have to keep the heating going. And you have to get along with each other because here you are stuffed in this little spot, you know, together during the Arctic winter. And it was a small group, and the book describes it as the most fantastic experience of her life. She said that when she left and went to a bar in Australia, you could immediately tell who was a Polmate in one look, and there was this look in their eyes. And her comment was, this is how people were meant to live in tribes. Because they pulled together because they had to, they had wonderful fun, you know, they set up entertainment so they wouldn't lose their minds. In fact, the scientists studying this recommended more entertainment to keep them, you know, in a good mood. But the comment was, this is how people are meant to live in tribes, you know, with all this outside pressure, make it so they have to work together and have fun together.
Did you hear that?
I heard that.
I'm wondering if we could, just for this discussion, I could move and whoever's gonna speak, come and sit here. Let me do that. Yeah. So if you're gonna speak, go sit by Don. Whoever
Good idea.
will talk to you, sit here, so you can
Oh,
hear.
no,
Yes,
no.
yes.
That
Somebody do it
makes
now.
me the
Quick,
center.
quick, do it.
You are the senator.
Okay, who said listen to her?
It's passing the microphone. The microphone is there, people go to the microphone.
Okay. It's an illustration of what I'm talking about. You don't fuss and start arguing, fighting about little things like this.
You gotta hear it.
Just to it, for crying out loud. Let's get up. What are your priorities?
This is our adjustment.
And it's our priority. And have you hear it?
I believe that we're all in this together, you know, the whole world, and I have an idea for us in the world to get along better. And that's like, you know, when Hillary Clinton was talking about adopt a village, I just feel like there's different towns in the United States that could say, okay, we're going to adopt this little village in Afghanistan, and everybody in the town's going to write letters or send stuff or whatever, you know, on a one-to-one basis. If we could adopt, you know, all these little towns and adopt other towns all over the world, to me, that would be a way of saying, hey, we're the same. I mean, we have sister city relations with like Hiroshima and a lot of other places, but they're always, you know, industrial centers and it's more commercial. But if we did it on a one-to-one basis, I just think this could really promote world understanding. It's just a thought that I have. That's all. Who's next?
Who's next? Okay.
You heard what I said.
Oh,
You heard what I said, John, yeah?
I sure did. As being a preacher, I have a response to everything that's said. So, it'll be, the closer people get together, the more they shed the superficialities that just lets us get along at least, and gets down. The most murders, the most serious crimes are committed within the family. Got a great example of it right here. On this island, man, should have shot his lover and mother of his children. No. Blows my mind. Anyway, priorities. So important. So
Yes.
what you do is determined by how you look at things.
Sometimes I think that solutions are right in our face and we're looking for them somewhere else. And I have two things that have come up for me when I've been listening to you today, Don. One thing is, I grew up here. This island is one of the most racially segregated of all the islands. I grew up the only Haole in my class. My friends are different nationalities. So I live in Nanavali. Now, one of the problems with the Big Island that I see is because we live rurally, people don't really get to know the neighbors. They don't really feel like a community. They feel kind of isolated. So I'm an extrovert and I make friends. So on Christmas Day, I went next door to my friend, the only house on the street that they're from Russia. They barely speak English. I brought cookies. They gave me a cranberry tart, and we had a lovely time together. Okay, for just 10 minutes. There's another family that lives on the other side of the street. They're both local. Papa Holly got a cute little baby. He's a plumber. I have for the last 6 years had this problem with my water line, where in Nanavali, I have county water, but whoever owned my house only buried it 6 inches. It's all over Nanavali. So when I go off studying in Costa Rica, it breaks to the tune of $1,000 to get the, they negotiate it down, and you've got to have somebody come out, and you have 3 people before they find the leak. So this has been going on. Now I'm looking at getting my master's and studying abroad again, and I'm going, the water pipe, $5,000. I live at the end, and the line goes all the way down. So this has been a problem. This young man who has a family on the other side of the street says, you know, my mom owns a lot midway in your block. And, you know, because I was talking to him about the water, I didn't know he was a plumber. We'd just been friends. So I talked to him about it, and it turns out he would bring the pipe halfway up the block. Well, guess what? They don't have the money to do that. So I'm paying for the pipe, I'm paying for the sand, I'm paying to rent the equipment. It will probably cost me maybe $2,000 over a period of 2 months, and he's doing the labor. And that's my neighbor in my community. And I never would have, I mean, I just bring cookies and make friends. So that's.
Well, before you leave, I don't want to cut it off, the discussion. So if some of you want to respond to what the speaker is saying, feel free. That's how we really get to know each other.
Rumi says it best in response to yours and the previous person. If to live the beauty you see, there are 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss the earth. And the trouble can be that we want everybody else to live the beauty that we see. That was mine, at least. I'm working on it. But how do we just live what we see, and then when it calls to us, we can respond to that?
I think that that's really true, and I also think that I myself need to do everything I can, not just making friends in the neighborhood, politically, socially, everything, and maybe there's a chance. And that's not what everybody is doing, or I have a big job babysitting my own head. I don't know what everybody else would do, but that's kind of that. And then the other thing that you addressed was your childhood. And I want to tell you, my parents were right-wing conservative. I grew up in it. I know, you're telling me. And I grew up in a very conservative household. I've been left of left since I was like born. I've been told that. And I have been kicked out of my family and re-invited in and all like that. But one of the things that I did get from my parents is they ran a nonprofit camp in the mountains. So we were a working family. My kids toured doing puppet shows with me. We were a working family. When we went to the mainland, we picked and canned 100 pounds of tomatoes each year. And we had fun doing it. But that's how work ethic, I think, is taught. And a lot of kids don't have that with their, and that was the best thing. I was taken out of high school and cooked for 40 people 3 times a day because I was doing all kinds of stuff in high school that I shouldn't be doing. And so that was one of the most enriching things in my life, being a young person, 16 years old, and having adults say, wow, you're happening, this is great food, and all like that. So I'm just wanting to address how you were working in your dad's store, how important that is to model that and to teach giving to the community. How can I help?
Yeah, well, I want to
Maybe we
point
can,
out.
yeah. Maybe we can have some other folks come to take the chair.
Okay. While you're coming over here, how important it is to recognize the reality of what we live every day. We are not perfect people. Everybody knows that in the silent moments. If we stop long enough to look inwardly a little bit, not too long, but just to recognize we are not perfect. Our city, state, country is not perfect. Our world is not perfect. We do what we can where we are. The Quaker model, which is probably the greatest one, is think globally, act locally. Not bad. You should do better than that, but go ahead. But that's pretty hard to beat.
Okay, we got another one. And I think in a few minutes, I'm going to start asking other people to go and take the chair because I know that you don't, some of you won't talk unless you're asked.
Yeah, we don't have this finally perfected yet, obviously.
The chair.
On what you just said about think globally and act locally, we live in this illusion that we are separate. And we all have these separate bodies that we walk around in. But we are all connected. And there's also an illusion that God lives, either God is out here or God is within me. And there's this light within me. But it's come to me lately that God is not an universal intelligence, whatever you'd like to name it. This light that within me is not static. And so it tells me how connected I am. And the light and God within me is constantly flowing in and out of me. There's not this stationary light within me, it flows in and out of me. It flows in and out of me when I'm speaking to you. It flows from you into me. It flows from me into you. It flows from the plants and the animals and everything that we have here. And there's this undeniable energy, and we have a choice. And whenever we are sitting here in fear, being uncomfortable, negative, frustrated, angry, all we have to do is realize that it's what we're thinking in our minds instead of what's in our hearts that's creating this negative energy. And that switching that and looking within and sharing that, and you know what you said about the light going out and being extinguished and being rekindled by each other. And one of the hardest things that I've ever dealt with is the negative emotions that I have, that I've been taught. And what I'm learning is that each time that I feel that, that's a barometer for me. It's like, it's telling me I am not in alignment with what we are supposed to be doing. And that's getting rid of this illusion that I'm separate. And if I'm not feeling good, if I'm frustrated, if I'm angry, if I'm upset, it's because I am not in tune with the positive energy. And it's so easy to get back in that alignment. And it's so much easier if we are the change that we seek in others and use ourselves as the mirror, you know, to say, this is making me feel uncomfortable. What do I have to, what's in me that I need to let go of? And, you know, the truth is subjective. We all have our own view of how we see things, but how wonderful that we can share in the truth of others. And, you know, I call myself a truth seeker, but I know, like Holly was saying, that truth will never be sought. It's constantly changing and evolving. So I really, really appreciate the opportunity to hear what you have to say, to hear what everybody else has to say, and the opportunity to share words that are within me, and I don't even know where the hell they're coming from, but I know they're in there. So, you know, this energy that we have here produces so much positive energy. I didn't feel like coming here today. And that's not, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, and I'm sure I've heard somebody one other time say they didn't feel like coming, but I did. And I told Bobby, I said, I feel compelled. I don't know why, but I need to go and I need to do this. And so there's a trusting in where I was being led. And the fact that I felt uncomfortable about coming meant that I wasn't in alignment with what I needed to do. The minute I said, okay, I feel compelled to go, I'm going to feel good about going, then that changed, that negativity just disappeared. So, you know, what we resist persists, and I think that it's so important that we let go. And I want to thank you for bringing this to our awareness today, and the words that everyone has to say. I just feel very open and receptive this morning, and you
guys are providing me with a reignition, I guess, of my light. It's getting a little dim.
All right, yeah.
Thank you.
See if anybody has a question.
Oh,
Yeah, you come pretty much to the heart of it. What's your priorities?
yeah.
Maybe our visitor, maybe our visitor from Indiana has some priorities she's willing to share.
I have a quick question. This issue of being light, if we burn too bright, we eclipse everything else in the room. And until the sun goes out, you can't see the stars. So how do we bank our own light to meet that of others?
Anybody else?
You can pass, Holly. Okay. Are you
Something on your
passing?
mind you want to share?
Okay. How about Kathy? You got any priorities for this year? Maybe.
I know it's difficult.
Can you sit over
I know
there,
it's
Kelly?
difficult. We're not accustomed to this. We don't deal with each other on this basis very much. And we have to be careful.
Okay.
We don't invade people's privacy. There's no desire to do that. It's a desire to give a good reason for being here on Sunday morning. Which, you know, John Wesley was the founder of our Methodist Society, an Episcopal priest. Oh, not Episcopal, a Church of England in England. And he got kicked out up there because, so he had crowds following him all over the open fields. It's the thousands of people. He said, if thy heart is as my heart, take my hand and we'll walk together. That's not bad either. Okay. Keep it going.
You want to go? Oh, good.
Terry? Got you joined in.
Yeah, there's a Buddhist running around, and he said something like, the next Buddha will be Sangha, and that's his Greek for the next enlightened. You know, there's been enlightened people throughout history. The next enlightened person isn't going to be a person, it's going to be a community. All right, and we were talking about how we live in tribes, and tribal living is good, and so that's out there, and I thought I'd share that. And the other thing is that there's a dark side to being in a tribe. Tribal behavior is primitive behavior, and if you're a member of the tribe, you're doing okay. But if you're not a member of the tribe, you know, if you think one person can be angry and fearful, and you know, just watch what a tribe can do. You know, if you're not a member of the tribe. So I'm done.
Must have a response to that. You've had a couple times. You wait a while. I just want to see if somebody else. Come on! Don't sit there and wait to see what somebody else thinks.
Well, I would agree with that statement that I believe the tribal concept must be a genetic concept for humans, but if we cannot evolve beyond that concept, then we will be in trouble, because the whole world now is so interconnected and it's so easy to talk to someone anywhere in the world, that the tribal idea is just going to tear that apart, and I don't think it can coexist with the global community. I think the whole global community has to come together.
Well, it's like last time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, why don't we, if you're gonna go, why don't you go sit? Yeah, but sit, Terry, could you move so he can sit there? Okay, yeah,
So he can
please.
hear you.
Yes, he can't hear you.
It's our
I was
microphone.
just going to say that it will have the world peace and the kind of world we want when the whole world is one tribe. And we have to see that, and maybe with the communications now, people are starting to, all over the world are starting to realize that there are people all over that are like them and have some of the same feelings, and we can think of ourselves as one tribe. But that's a big difference. And we don't need nations, because a nation is just a big tribe. Or if you're I guess my thought is we have to get beyond seeing other people as other people. We have to see other people as just like you were saying, the light in me, recognizes the light in you. So we see, we all have that light, and if we, as always said, if we don't burn so bright that we can't see beyond ourselves, then we'll recognize each other. And but we also have to realize that I think a lot of the problems we have in the world is because there's been a tendency not to want to share, and somebody said we should have learned that in kindergarten. But as a world, some people want more than other people, and they're willing to kill them or take it away one way or another. I think for the first time in history, most people are realizing that it is one world, and that just as somebody mentioned, the group of people that were cooped up at the North Pole, well, more people are beginning to realize that the world, the whole planet, is like that. We're all stuck on this one planet, and that we're using up the resources of this planet faster than they can be replenished, and that somehow or another we're going to have to figure out how to live sustainably as indigenous people figured out. So we need to change our values and become more sharing of what we have, so that it can last forever.
You realize how difficult it is for us humans to change, don't you? And communities, who are speaking of the tribes, they kill you if you don't agree with the rest of them sometime. But how much of a reality is it that we can get together peacefully, worldwide?
We don't have a lot of choice.
I want to come and talk to you.
You're ready.
Yeah.
It's a question, isn't it? But that's what we have to live with. We live in the United States of America. I don't live someplace else. I can't imagine I live in Denmark or something completely, what I think would be a more favorable culture, and probably wouldn't when I got there.
I want to respond to the thing about using up the Earth's resources. It interests me that we'll have these countries like Japan, that their birth rate is low. Well, rather than figuring out how to deal with the problem of the low birth rate as compared to raising the birth rate, figure out how to live with that, because it's better for the planet. And there are so many European countries that are the same. Their birth rate's gone down so that they won't have enough workers to support all these old people. Well, in Alaska and Canada, old people walked off into the ice wall and took care of themselves. Well, we won't even let them do that here. We won't let people take care of themselves when they know that they're superfluous.
When you say take care of themselves, man, do you bring in a big load. I mean, you have all these different cultures with the different ideas of how much responsibility you have for taking care of those who can't or don't want to take care of themselves. I don't know which is which sometimes. I was a social worker for a while. It's awfully hard to tell sometimes. But in general, most people who need help don't enjoy living the way they're living. And,
Is it always?
I'd like to respond to this. No, remember that picture of the Earth? that showed the Earth for the first time from space. And we got to see that it's one Earth and we're one people. But what goes along with that is something that goes right at the heart. I'm an anarchist at heart. But we need one law that covers everyone. Which means we need one government that covers everyone. And how do we give it? In a group like this, you're the facilitator, you tell me to shut up and don't say anything, I did it. We have to be able to give up something in order to get something. Which means we have to give up nationalism in order to get world federalism or something along that line.
Well, just don't take my car away from me.
If we agree that cars are deleterious, you're losing your car.
It's awfully hard. To balance this reality and all the overwhelming needs of this world, you need some guidelines like think globally, act globally, or something like that. It's too overwhelming. We are limited. We are humans. We think we've discovered so many things that are just amazing. And right now, the researchers on the brain just blow your mind, all the things they're discovering, and it may change our way of looking at things sometimes. I hope it doesn't give us an escape. Well, I can't help the way I am. There's my gene mode, and I'm just that way. We can't use it that way. Yeah. So we do what we can where we are, and I think we're not forgetting the humor that's mentioned in the reading, joy. Well, we still have a little time, so come on. What things are almost there and you're about ready? You can stay there if you really don't want to come here.
Well, and remember his question, what are your priorities? Why don't you, Kathy, are you willing to go over there? Yeah.
Corey does a pretty good job of living that way, if you know her.
Speak for yourself, Tom.
Okay, I try. You try harder than I do.
I've kind of lost track of what we're talking about, but my two thoughts are about how to resolve conflicts. And one, I think, is to decrease the power of corporations. You know, corporations are now considered people. And I've seen a wonderful analysis of how they operate, and they turn out to be psychopathic if you go through the personality traits, because they are only concerned for their stockholders. That's the only way they look at things. And they have tremendous power. Like people, they have all these rights, and they have just taken so much legal power and actual power that they're shaping the way the world works. They have tremendous public relations and advertising, and they shape our minds and what we want and what we think is important. They're the reason we go to wars in other countries, to defend American corporate interests. The military and corporations kind of feed on each other, they support each other, to where the military budget is, I don't know what, something, I think it's more than half our national budget. I mean, that is out of control. So we need to reduce the power of corporations, change the laws. My other thought is totally different. If you look at dolphins, I read a book by a scientist who went through all these studies of dolphins for hundreds of pages, and at the end he drew his conclusions, which I've talked about here before. But he's saying that the dolphins, they operate kind of as one organism, a pod of dolphins, because they can't lie to each other, because with the sonar they can pick up your inner state. And so, if you're upset, if you're sick, if you're happy, if you're relaxed, they can pick that up. They can't lie to each other, and they can't go in their houses. There's no houses in the ocean. Their only protection is to stick together. So again, you have to stick together to survive. So I think we want to learn from them. Maybe they'll live longer than we do, inherit their pieces of
Communist, you.
Bravo.
See, that's the American way.
That's the
Instead of talking about this, what? No, I won't give other people a chance. A preacher can help keep talking if he's got anything to say or not.
Kathy, Jim, you got any priorities you want to talk about?
God, I have too many. I tried to organize them in my head. So we'll try just by starting.
No, it's perfect. We're just truth seeking.
I'm not trying to be perfect. I live in a community. I am also the manager of that community. And my starting, I think I explained this one time, the idea is to teach the group to be interdependent, coming from the mainland, from independence, is a very interesting process. It doesn't matter whether the people are 20 or they're 50. Some get it and some don't get it. And I had a very interesting comment from a woman from New York City. She's a lawyer in New York City who came to the community for a relaxation totally different than lying on the beach for a week. And every day I go to every single person in the community, whether we have 5 people or we have 15 people, and probably more than once. How are you doing? How did you sleep? Whatever question it has to do with how are they doing. And at first she said to me, and she said this in a group, we had a communication thing that night, one night, and she said, you know, Kathy, at first I really wasn't sure if I liked being asked how I was all the time. And because it didn't happen in New York City for her. And then she said, I really appreciate it, that I know someone is paying attention to how my body is, my facial expressions are, because I'm like that dolphin who will pick up how people are doing. And so I'm asking all the time.
Well, you know how to escape that. The standard answer is fine. I hate that word, fine. I mean, it doesn't mean anything because that's your response.
I didn't even hear you. I think it's fine. Fine, right.
Yeah.
No, and I don't let them do that.
But
I ask another question.
when it comes to the point of invading your privacy, then it goes beyond that.
And as a group, you kind of don't have privacy, like the dolphins. They have sonar about what's going on. And in a community, Vanessa has lived there and left, not necessarily because I don't think she missed the privacy, but I don't think so. You don't have privacy there. And I was thinking about what Polly said. Is that how you pronounce your name? About the banking the big light. And I thought, well, if you're a big light, then you're not trying to be like everybody else. You're not trying to be connecting with other people. And I've been accused of judgmental, conformist, and I'm like, wait a minute. My feeling is people come to our community because they want to be there. I'm not judging whether they want to be there or don't want to be there, or eat a certain way, because we want to be raw vegan. We're not all raw vegan, but so people say, well, you're judging how I eat. No, I'm not judging how you eat. You come because you want to be raw vegan and you want to live within a group. And if you don't want to live like that, and you don't want me to be jungle mom, which is what I've been called, then you don't want to live here. You know, because this is how it is. This is our community, and this is how we want this community to be. We want to be able to recycle. We want to be able to live off the grid. We want to be able to take care of our land and eat our vegetables and care for each other. When one person has staff, everybody has staff, whether they have it or not physically. but we gotta pay attention that they don't give it to us either. But we take care of each other. And we try to bank our individualism, which we have learned very well in the mainland, and extinguish our big light to be one light together. That's my idealism of my communities.
We would need another session on cause and effect and how they relate to each other and what you do. I'll just throw out a couple. One of the most amazing things in our world was when the most advanced country in the world, music, philosophy, everything, Germany, most advanced, no doubt about it, I think. Hitler, crazy little word. Now I'm and that's my prejudice, isn't it? I almost said runt. And the other is Sarajevo was a city where all these different Muslims and Christians and everything dwelt happily for years and years. It seems like one guy comes along and they have a terrible massacre. What? Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking that what's going on, priorities, Afghanistan, healthcare, priorities. Like that's a macrocosm and my life is a microcosm. Learning to be organized, learning to take care of myself and do what I can for locally, globally, like that. But it's like what's going on out here is going on, I believe, inside of each of us on different levels of learning to prioritize. And I think it's a problem that's up for all of us globally.
Well, I think one principle is important. Simplify, 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 Thoreau's dictum. I mean, it's almost required in this cybernetic era that I thank God that I retired before it came on. I don't think I'd be able to handle it. I simplify by going back in former times, which watch that. That's dangerous. You don't go back. It was much more attractive time. But you have to balance. You have to choose. You have to prioritize. You'll go crazy if you think of all these things at once. Decide what you can do, what you might influence something. Get informed as well as you can. Act as best you can. And what more can a person do? Well, some people do, there's a Gandhi, there's a Martin Luther King, but I'm not in their ring. They're too much above me. Thank God we have them. We have Jim Albertini here. I can't be a Jim Albertini and jump in the bay and get 2 years in prison protesting a nuclear sub visiting here. But he can, and gladly chooses it. Did you?
I just wanted to see if there was any person that wanted one last thing to say before we go on to announcements.
Martin, I have a poem that I may have read already, but it's very pertinent to priority. And I'm going to try to put it together. Usually I read it.
Okay.
There was a grandfather talking to his grandson, and he said that there's there's a war going on inside of us, and it's between evil and prejudice and hate and negativism, and also love and caring and support and compassion. And it goes on with all of us. And the little boy was sitting there And he said, which one will win? And the grandfather stopped a minute and he just looked at his grandson and he said, whichever you feed.
Yeah. Great story.
If there are no others, I was sitting behind Peter with using the video, and it really, I'm so glad you did it. I'm so glad you did it. And so anyway, announcements, let's start with the order of service. Please keep your order of service because it has all of the contact numbers for the officers of this organization. And it also has the upcoming programs for the next 4 weeks. So if you have any thoughts about what you'd like, if you prioritize what you're going to do, then you can look at those and it'll help you prioritize. And I hope that even if you didn't bring food, come up to, for the potluck because we have enough. So, go ahead.
This is the sign up for bringing food and setting up the coffee every week.